All right. Hello, 14ers, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to Ministry Revealed. It is December 26th, 2020. I almost forgot what year it was. I was going to jump ahead 2021. December 26th, 2020. And you know what? I am going to take my headset off because it's an old habit that I was doing, keeping my headset on, because I actually use the speakers from the laptop. And it's a funny thing that that's how it started, because the reason I mentioned it is I built a little shed, if you will, within my garage. I don't have the pictures ready. I wasn't planning on sharing that with you guys, but I got sound barriers or sound sponges, whatever you want to call. I just got them in today, and I was able to put them on the wall behind me, so it's not echoey. My room is nice and warm. I don't have a door on it. I left that open, but I got my heater in here. Now it stays warm. I don't have to see my breath and my hands get cold, even with the heater. So my son helped me build it last week. It just took us a couple days. It's pretty awesome. So yeah, I'm excited. The sound is good. So hopefully it all comes across just fine on your end as well. All right, today, guys, it's going to be. I don't mean for it to be a little somber, but it's not because it's going to be somber for us, but you're going to see we gotta really pray for family and friends. We gotta really kick it up a notch, because what's coming is I think a lot more than a lot of us think. You know, I've seen, we've all seen it. We've all seen a number of videos over the last little while, and I just saw a couple recently, and one just either earlier today or yesterday. And it was funny because this is a video I was already working on for the last day. And it's the people that think the tribulation has already started. Those that think, oh, we're already 3.5 years in, or I saw from a brother that I like, but he they don't understand the timing, guys. And I don't say this to say, oh, we've got the timing. Ooh, we've got the timing, because people within the ministry are going to say, oh yeah, well, we've missed everything so far. We have not misunderstood the end of days. All right? We have not misunderstood the 13, 14 years. We have not misunderstood the timing of the seals and the timing of the trumpets, the pre, mid, and post of the escape of the bride, the rapture of the church, the return of the Lord feet down. We have not misunderstood these things. They are all true. The open gospels, the books, the 14 years is all true. Once it begins, you would better believe what this ministry has been revealed will all play out. But maybe some things that we hadn't recognized so much in this timing, seeing these people talking about, oh, the tribulation has already started. They don't have the timing. All right. They don't understand that the end time books haven't been opened unto them. That's all there is to it. When you understand what's coming, and I mean seriously take a look at what's coming. We're going to talk a little bit about it today in one particular section, but I'm sure we'll branch off. You're going to see why scriptures say it's going to be the worst time in all of human history. And then after that time of being the worst in human history, it's going to be worse again. Way worse. This video, I'm not sure what the title will be yet. Something to do with war, something along those lines. You're going to realize that there's war, there's running, there's another war, and then there's coming to the Lord, and then there's fleeing away, and then there's another great war, and then there's a return. Guys, the end of days is filled with war and running. Okay? Groups that are left compared to groups taken. Of course, we understand all that in the pre, mid, and post. So what happened with today's video, and the reason I started going down this trail, is I wanted to see, is it possible? I was trying to understand, is it possible that we're going to see the first attack on Israel? All right. I believe it's possible that the bride would see the first attack on Israel. And you're going to see why. We're going to get into that today. It's not so far-fetched. When we see Luke and we see 1 Thessalonians 5 and and we see what is it, Second Chronicles 36, I think it is. You know, we'll go into these things. Yeah, Second Chronicles 36. We'll go into these things, and you know, some of these things are pieces that we've spoken about before, but never with the context of looking directly into these things, at looking directly at the wars themselves. Okay, determining where and when these wars are. You know, we've spoken a lot over the last little while because we know this is going to begin with an attack on Israel. Then we know World War III is going to come. And at that timing of World War III, it's almost part and parcel with the second attack on Israel. All right. There will be the second attack. That second attack will be the lion. And they'll be teamed up with Russia and so on and so forth. And World War III will take place. Okay, we're going to go into that. We're going to follow that trail right to the end. And man, I got to tell you, it feels weighty, you know what I mean? Knowing what we know and having these revelations and this understanding come. Today was kind of a somber day. Let's just say that I've been very quiet today, and you know, sometimes it just gets heavy, and this is one of those days where you're just like, oh man, you know, and this doesn't even account for when Antichrist gets his power, and when the Christians that will have been in through the revival time of war, during war and everything, that then the Antichrist gets his power. Now there's got to be fleeing for the Christians then. I mean, that's not even counting the war. Or in Matthew when it talks about it. We'll touch on those things in a little bit as well. I mean, man, it's going to get tough, guys. And we need to really pick up our socks and pray really hard for our family and friends that the Spirit will open their eyes now, will unplug their ears, right? Drop the scales from their eyes, open their ears, and circumcise those hearts, right? Because it's going to really suck. So we're going to go into this. I just made a couple notes on these things so I don't get too far off just at the start. Most of what we're talking about are all the wars before, yeah, that's right, before and after these things of Mark and Matthew in relation to the discourses. Well, today you're going to understand even better, like I said, praying and so forth. Okay, I've covered that. So, okay, I think I've pretty much covered the little opening piece I wanted to cover with that, because it's going to get better in the next videos. All right, if we're still here, you know, God willing, we haven't figured out the start time yet, right? None of us have been able to figure out this start time yet, but we know one thing: above 14 years. Okay, the minimum above 14 years is 40 days. That's the minimum. So we might still have a little time left. Remember when I told you guys about, you guys have all seen it, that video, when I told you guys about the 50, 14, 50, we talked about it quite a bit lately. Maybe that's what the Lord was sharing. Maybe that's why it's come back to my thoughts a lot lately. 50, 14, 50, right? Maybe that's the count. Maybe that's the above. It's the 50 above, and then the 14, and then the 50 for the Jubilee. So, like I've been saying for a long time, we need to prepare our hearts that time may go right into early spring, right? Early March or somewhere in, early April, you know, at the latest. Because we're trying to figure out this other stuff for a start time, but you know, we just haven't hit it yet. We know Luke is in order. All right, there's no denying Luke is in order. So do I still think we're in this time? Is it possible the calendars are wrong and it's the sun, moon, and stars calendar? Yeah, oh man, all that stuff is possible. I just don't know with these calendars. All right, none of us has been very clear. In fact, if you go do a little study, what was I doing a study in just recently? It was a post from a brother that Ivan had in the forum, and it was talking about the book of the Magi, if I remember correctly. I think it's called the Book of the Magi. It was all in those Qumran, in the Qumran scrolls, right? The Dead Sea Scrolls, all right, in the Qumran caves. And one of the things that were found in there was the Magi, the writings of the Magi. All right, they were Iranians, by the way. And so when it said from the east, they were Iranians, and when they got there, it was really interesting. It said that Mary said to the Magi that Jesus was in his second year. All right, isn't that interesting? We've been saying that for a long time here, that Jesus was about 2 years old. It was give or take around that time. That's why in Matthew 2, it calls him a young child. Okay, he wasn't a little baby wrapped in swaddle anymore. He was a young child. But when you go in and you study and you look into these things, you find out that there's been debates. And right, so you go research and dig into those things and find some of those studies, you'll find out that there was people debating like 1800 years ago, just like we are now, just like in the time of Sir Isaac Newton, right? Just like we're doing now. They still didn't know which calendar was the real one. They couldn't, some went this way, some went that way, some said this way, no, that way, this way. So no wonder, I mean, if they were that confused back then, no wonder it seems confusing now. But there's one thing that will never change, guys. And I've been saying this one for about 3 years now. I haven't said it in a little while. And that is the one thing you can't change that's crystal clear obvious is a year. Okay? You can't get the year wrong. If you live in Canada, you know when it's summer and you know when it's winter. You know when it's summer, you know when it's winter. You know when it's summer, you know when it's fall, you know when it's spring. There's no mistaking the two main seasons that we would get in Canada, summer and winter. So it's not like somebody's going to fool you on a year count. All right. So we haven't got the year count wrong. We've got maybe the start of the year, the mid, when the winter, so on and so forth. Okay. And that's something we could take a sigh of relief and say, okay, we haven't mixed up, we haven't been messed up in trying to understand the year this year and where we're at in all of history. We know we're just about to reach this above 14 years. And when we hit that above portion, soon as that above day hits, bride's gone. That's what Paul's telling us in 2 Corinthians 12 too. That's the moment the bride goes. The moment that above portion starts, the bride is gone. And we've got 3 to 4 months at most. Less than a full 4 months, actually. All right. And that's the worst case scenario. And that's the worst case scenario. All right. So I want to let you guys know I'm also working on 2 other videos. I've wanted to do this for a little bit now. Remember when I talked about the churches, the 7 churches in the book of Revelation, chapter 2 and chapter 3? Well, those I'm going to do in a short, compact video. So for those who are new to the ministry, I always promote this one right here, Introduction to the End Time Teachings. These 2 videos right here, these 30-minute videos will give you the understanding of what's been revealed. The opening of the books, who the Gospels are speaking to has been revealed once and for all. 30 minutes, and if you go into the description box, click more, you can click on the printout for this, okay? This one here is the 14 years. You will come to understand in the introduction in a 30-minute teaching with a printout as well. You will come to understand that the truth is 2 sets of 7, that it's 7 years of seals and 7 years of trumpets. It's 6 years and the 7th year Sabbath, 6 years and the 7th year Sabbath for trumpet. But at that 7th year of trumpets, the Lord returns and he will fulfill that final year. He will return at the end of 13 and fulfill that 14th year. Then I always tell people, skip down to video number 4. It's called The Differences in the Truth. You're going to understand for the first time ever why we've been told 7 years, how we've been so confused in why we've seen 7 years all our lives. All of church life has been 7 years for the end of days. You're going to understand the answer is Matthew. All of our lives, for generations, we've been getting taught from Matthew, who is written to the Jews. Mark is written to the sleeping church. That's seals. Luke is speaking to the bride of Christ, the Gentile bride of Christ. That's the escape of the bride. All right. This will bring clarity to that for you. And so with this little series here, these two of the 30-minute videos, I'm going to do a 30-minute teaching with a printout as well on those 7 end time churches with that revelation we did in a breakdown from this that was just so awesome. And then I'm also working on the wedding feast, the parable of the wedding feast, which, guys, is going to blow you away. That'll probably be that will probably be the next video, and you're going to love it, because we've been talking about this for a long time, that there's the bride of Christ like a Leah, and then there's a Rachel. All right, Rachel was the one that he loved. The Gentiles he's going to get. But remember, Christ never came for the Gentiles, right? He came for Israel, the lost sheep. Okay, so the Gentiles got grafted in, but that Gentile bride is like a type and shadow of Leah. And then you see that he gets Rachel after that wedding, that 7-day feast wedding, and then he has to work 7 to officially get her, and then he works with the father-in-law 6 more years, right? That's the 7 and the 6. That's the 13 of seals and trumpets to the Lord's return and the final covenant. Well, you're going to find out that the story is found in Luke and it's found in Matthew. And the one in Luke has 2 parts, and the one in Matthew has just the one. So I'm going to go into that in the next video. You guys are going to love it. It's going to be very exciting. So I wanted to give you a heads up. I've actually got a little bit of a game plan on videos I'm going to do next. You know, a lot of times I just let it ride and see where the Spirit leads. And the Spirit will still lead them, but at least I know what I'm going to be studying into next. For those that don't know, you can go to ministryrevealed.com. Here's the website you can go to right here. Our Facebook, Twitter. The website is the forum. That's where I said, Ivan, there's 500-600 people in there sharing, posting things, going back and forth, prayer requests, support, all sorts of things going on in there. So come and join us there. Ask questions, right? Straightforward, whatever you'd like. Okay. And so now with that, let me take a sip of coffee and let's get into what the crux of today's video is. We've spoken on this a number of times, right? Let's go to it. Let's go into our trusted e-sword. We're going to go to 2 Chronicles 36. In 2 Chronicles 36, we've recently talked about this, right? So we don't have to spend a lot of time in it except to set the groundwork, if you will. We see that Zedekiah, okay, Zedekiah, his name used to be Netanyahu. It was changed to Zedekiah. We showed how it's like Netanyahu, okay? Netanyahu is in his 11th year of his reign, right? He's done evil in the sight of the Lord. They just won't listen. He's stiff-necked, hard-hearted. And we know that an attack is coming, okay? The misuse of the prophets till the Lord says, look, till there was no more remedy, okay? There was just no more remedy. It had to begin. Well, we know this is where we're at. We understand the 70 and the additional 3 years to when the official tribulation will begin. But here's the point of how I started going down this trail a little bit, is there's an attack that comes before the 14 years begins. Isn't that interesting? Okay. Those that have been around for a while, you're going to say, well, that's no big deal, right? There's an attack that comes before. This is what Daniel 9's talking about. In Daniel 9, you know, this evil that is brought upon us, therefore hath the Lord watched upon the evil and brought it upon us, for we obeyed not his voice, right? Jerusalem and thy people are become a reproach to all that are round about us. See, behold our desolations in the city which is called by thy name. They already had an attack. Okay, 2 Chronicles 36 and Daniel 9 are directly connected. All right, that the beginning of them. It's all of 2 Chronicles 36, but it's the start of Daniel 9. This is that attack. It's the same attack that we're reading about here that comes during the time of Zedekiah in his 11 years of reign. You're going to notice that it's rebelled against King Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, it's not Syria. It's not the Assyrians coming. Okay, it's not them coming with a small group yet. This is a first attack. See, this whole point, there's no remedy. He's bringing the pawn, all the treasures being brought to Babylon. They broke down the wall. They burnt the palaces thereof with fire. And they had escaped from the sword and carried away into Babylon until the reign of the kingdom of Persia. Okay? So what are we talking about? We're looking at this first attack happening, which we know is in the Middle East against Israel. And it lines up with what we've been talking about in this for 9 months. But we were talking about it for 2 years. That the first attack will come against Israel. Now, what we've been trying to understand is in this first attack that comes against Israel and in the Middle East, like he even talks about, it's going to be a short-lived attack, right? It's going to be short. There's going to be major destruction and devastation. And then it's going to settle. Well, of course, remember, when it settles, what's going to happen? The settling is going to be just like this. I believe this first attack that we've been talking about that's coming, that's going to be the short, probably tactical, couple of tactical nukes in the Middle East between Israel and Iran, is this one right here being spoken about in 2 Chronicles 36. And it's the exact one right here being spoken about in Daniel 9, the middle portion of it. Okay? How do we know? Because it's going to be, one, it's short, and number two, it's before World War III. So the first attack is going to be an attack on Israel. Until the time that what? The time of fulfilling the 70 years. We've talked about this time of fulfilling the 70 years many, many times. And we finally have the last piece of the revelation that explained that it revealed that we are right now in the 70 years. See, how long will you not have mercy on Jerusalem and Judah, against which you have had indignation these 70 years? Okay, I was sore displeased with them, and then they helped forward the affliction. You find out they're going to be scattered throughout the land. Okay, so that no man did lift up his head. You're going to want to remember that. You're going to see another part with another war that comes later, where it says they've now lifted up their head. Okay, so we know that this other one I'm going to share with you later cannot be the first one, because this one causes them to keep their heads down. Okay, that's later though. So we know that this one's during the 70th year. This is talking about the first one as well. This is during the 70th year. The one in Daniel, during the 70th year. And how do we know that this attack in Daniel, this first attack, came before the 70 years was over? We know it from Daniel 9:25. Well, first of all, you know it from Daniel 9:24, which is 70 weeks, which is 70 years, which were determined. The attack happened before that. And then what do we read? Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks, 7 years. This is 70 weeks as 70 years. This is 7 weeks as 7 years. You guys all know that have been following for a little while. These 7 weeks are the 7 years of seals that they're going to be removed from the land for. But let's not forget, when this first attack comes against Israel, everybody hasn't fled. It's not over. Remember that. It's not over. meaning they haven't all fled. Oh, there's probably several 100,000 people dead, maybe more, but they haven't all fled. Remember, it settles down quickly, even according to the plan that the elites had, that his contact was a part of. They're still there. It happened in the above portion of 70 years. See, it's still in that above before the 14 years begins. Sorry, sip of coffee. And what happens here is this commandment that's given after this attack. There's a commandment that's given to allow them to restore and to rebuild. Well, what commandment is it? It's the commandment given here, see, after that time of the 70 years. Who gives the commandment to allow them to start rebuilding? Cyrus. Cyrus. So there's going to be this new player come on the scene. And this Cyrus is going to be the one that makes the proclamation. And in his proclamation, it says that God charges him to rebuild, to build him a house in Judah. We know the story of Cyrus. History knows the story of Cyrus. He never ends up, his decree didn't allow them to go build anything except the foundation that we've recently covered in the video about the foundation, which will happen in about the 4th year of seals. All right, by that 4th year, the foundation will have been laid. Okay, but the building isn't laid yet. The building isn't finished. You guys remember that? We talked about it in the, I think we even touched on it in the last video. I think it's 1 Kings chapter 6, right? See, in the 4th year, the foundation of the house of the Lord was laid. And then in the 11th year, the house was finished. And it took 7 years to build. Well, in our timeline chart, what was that? The 4 years of seal. So in the 4th year, the foundation will have been laid. And then from the foundation having been laid in the 4th year, they won't start rebuilding the city and the streets again until the 7 years, like we just read in Daniel, have passed. Right? And then Messiah is here. They're on heavenly Mount Zion. And they're going to be rebuilding the city and the streets for the next 3.5 years. And the temple that they're going to build on the foundation that was laid on the 4th year. So from the 4th year of seals, and then nothing else is going to be built until the next 3.5 years of trumpets. And those 3.5 years of trumpets will be the city, the streets, and the temple. So the total was what? 4th year, 7 years to build, and when it's over, it'll be the 11th year. Really about 10.5. That's exactly what it says here. The exact thing. This is absolute evidence. Not only evidence, it's factual proof of the revelation and the understanding that we have. So when we're reading this here with Daniel, and we're seeing that a commandment is gone forth, then if this commandment went forth to allow them to rebuild, we know there was an attack. And if after the commandment to allow them to restore and to rebuild, why didn't they start rebuilding then? Because then war came again. Okay? World War III came again, but what was it specifically against Jerusalem? It was the lion. It was Assad coming down. Okay? That's what comes next. It's Assad coming. See that lion in Jeremiah chapter 4. The lion has come up from his thicket, and the destroyer of the Gentiles is on his way. This is Russia, all right? This is the bear. He has gone forth from his place to make thy land desolate, and thy cities shall be laid waste without an inhabitant. Who's laying waste to these cities? It's the lion, you see? The lion has come up from his thicket, and the destroyer of the Gentiles is on his way. Who's this one here that's being spoken about next? It's the lion. Because the Gentiles, the destroyer of the Gentiles is on his way. But he's speaking to Israel, to the Jews. He's speaking to their land and saying the lion, Assad, is coming. Syria is coming. He's coming with a small group. And so what does it say? with a small army. So the lion has come up from his thicket. He is gone forth from his place to make thy land desolate, and thy cities shall be laid waste without an inhabitant. Well, that doesn't happen at the first attack. Did you catch that? It doesn't happen at the first attack, because after the first attack, there's a decree to allow them to start rebuilding. Why? Because there's still people there. But we know in the revelation that's been given to us, in all of these revelations combined, we understand that once they're completely removed from the land, we know that's the time of the 14 years. Because the land is going to rest without them for 7 years. Oh yeah, the foundation is going to be laid, but not by them. Okay? Not directly by them. And so this foundation that's being laid is by a group that will come in and do work just in that area of the land. But there's no planting of crops. There's no rebuilding of everything. It's just coming in and beginning and getting this laying of the foundation done. Why aren't they going to be able to do anything after the laying of the foundation? Why does the laying of the foundation take 4 years before they can get to it? Because the war that follows next, World War III. And then why don't they continue after they've laid that foundation at the 4th year? Because the Antichrist is now getting his power to continue 42 months. You see how this is all fitting together? You seeing how all this comes together? So you've got one attack, and we're going to go into this to see if we can prove that, is it possible that the bride, that we're all still here for this first attack? Is that going to be the sign? And in fact, there's a scripture that says that would be the sign. I believe that was the sign for Israel, for the church, but it might also be a sign while we're still here as well. Okay, so we've proven that out. Okay, we know that this Cyrus is going to be the one making this decree. We know that they're not going to be able to rebuild right away. There's going to be a commandment. It looks like everything's going to be great. They're going to be allowed to, but then the lion's going to come. All right, you guys remember? Let's go into it this way. Let's go to 2 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles 24. Okay, here it is right here. 2 Chronicles 24, starting in verse 23. And it came to pass at the end of the year. Okay, this end of the year, we've talked about it many times. It's only used 4 times in all of Scripture. Let me see which one it is. It's used 4 times in all of Scripture. Here it is. Okay, only 4 times. One that we can really recognize. In fact, we recognize 2 of them very well, but this is one that we recognize really well as well. And this is Psalms 19. Psalms 19 is at the beginning of the year. Well, guess what? That's exactly what our timeline shows. See, the book of Psalms, these chapters to years. Psalms 19 is the beginning of the 14 years. Okay? It's the beginning of the 14 years of tribulation. A lot of people say, well, aren't we 2021? You know, isn't that how it's lined up? No, it's off by a year. This will be, in fact, you might even say 2. We're not going to be starting 2021. It's going to be 119 or 19 and 20 and 120. Okay? You'll understand it. We've talked about all these things before. But when you go to Psalms 19, remember, we're looking for this word end. When we go to this word end and we go to Psalms 19, you see, it's which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, ready as a strong man to run a race. And here it is. For his going forth is from one end of heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it. His circuit, there it is right there. It's the same word given to us in, what was it? Was it 2 Chronicles 24? Okay? It was the same word for end. The word circuit was the same word for end being used here. So this would show us that at this time of the end, okay, this time of the end, which is the beginning of the year, this time frame of spring, is when Syria is going to come up against Israel after the first attack. Remember that one that said in Jeremiah chapter 4, right? The lion has come up from his thicket. Who's the lion? Syria, Assad. He's going to be the one to lead it, and those that are with him. He's going to lead that strike against them. Why? Because they've already been weakened. They've already been weakened. And the escape will have happened. So if the escape happens, if we've all seen the first attack and then the escape happens, well, now America will be so decimated. The world will have been caught off guard by all of this. And now it will be the time for Syria to come in, surround them, and then attack them at the start of the 14 years, okay? In the spring of 2021. This would be the second attack. And at this attack, World War III would also break out. That's why you see in Jeremiah chapter 4, you see the lion has come up from his thicket, and the destroyer of the Gentiles is on his way. This attack against Israel will begin it, and then World War III with Russia and everything will take off everywhere. And I'm going to show you these connections now in between why I see this first attack being while we're here compared to the second one, of course, this one being the second one when we would be gone. Okay, here's this one here. Like, first of all, let's finish with this one. And it came to pass at the end of the year that the host of Syria came up against him, and they came to Judah and Jerusalem and destroyed all the princes of the people from among the people, and sent all the spoil of them unto the king of Damascus. For the army of the Syrians came with a small company of men, and the Lord delivered a very great host into their hand, because they had forsaken the Lord God of their fathers. Okay? Again, without spending too much time in this, we've gone into this a lot in the recent past. Okay? For Israel's disobedience. 7 times. One of their disobediences is they hadn't let the land of Jerusalem rest every 7th year Sabbath that they're supposed to. And so for the 7 times that they've missed, 7 times the land has to rest. If the land doesn't rest for those 7 years, then the Lord cannot rebuild on it. For some reason, the Jews, I guess in their arrogance, just like that story with, just like that parallel with Zedekiah, Netanyahu, and their stiff-neckedness, right? And in their disobedience and their arrogance, they think they're just going to be able to build the temple because they want to. They've been completely disobedient to their own laws, right? They just want prosperity, prosperity, prosperity. But guess what? We knew it was all part of God's plan. And that's what I want you guys to also take away from this. You know, this is all part of his plan. Not one thing is going to happen outside of his plan. So make sure, guys, that you leave information. Many of you that maybe don't yet know or haven't yet thought of it, leave information, leave printouts. Go to ministryrevealed.com and all of the videos are there. All of the printouts that we show you are available there. Everything is for free. In fact, our brother Jimmy set up the website where there's a button that says download. All you do is click the word download and boom, that video will download onto your laptop or your device. Okay? Very easy. And leave left behind letters for family and friends. Leave Bibles. If you can prepare some things with little left behinds for a little bit of snack or something to drink or whatever it is, but have something so that they can be better informed, because I'll guarantee you, they didn't want to listen. They didn't want to listen. They don't want to listen. But when it happens, they won't be able to deny that they heard it from you. All right? They're going to be looking for what you knew. And what better way than to have some information left in easy to find places or on a table when they come into your home. All right? Guys, they have failed for those 7 times. The Bible, the Lord had planned it that they would. In fact, he planned it so well that he knew when they were coming back into the land, it would be in the middle of a 7-year cycle that he said you're not allowed to do anything from taking of the fruits and so forth of the trees that are planted for 3 years, because he knew that they would come back into the land in the midst of a cycle. Do you understand how wild it is to know all these things? So see, for these 7 years that they failed, these 7 Sabbaths that they failed, the sword is coming upon them. I will scatter you among the heathen, and I will draw out a sword after you, and the land shall be desolate, and your cities waste. Well, hello. You're going to try and deny that? We just read that in Jeremiah 4. Right? The lion has come up from his thicket. He has gone forth from his place to make thy land desolate, and thy city shall be laid waste without an inhabitant. This is coming, guys, within the next few months, within a handful of months, less than a handful of months, actually. This is coming. That exact thing we were reading. And what did it just say in Leviticus 26? For the 7 years of the 7 Shemitas, they failed. Well, what 7 years is this talking about? It goes back to Daniel. Okay? It goes back to Daniel. Then there went a commandment to allow them to do it, but for 7 weeks or for 7 years, they're not going to be able to. Ta-da! And then for the first half of trumpets, they'll be rebuilding the city and the streets on the foundation that was laid in the 4th year. When the foundation was laid, after the world war was done, the Antichrist is about to show up, the foundation is laid, and then the Antichrist time comes, which is the abomination of desolation in Mark's discourse. So then there's no rebuilding of it then until Messiah comes on heavenly Mount Zion, and then they start rebuilding the city and the streets for 3.5 years of trumpets, the first 3.5 years for trumpets, before Satan is cast down, and then there's another fleeing, another being cut off that happens, and a war that goes against the saints and chasing them at that time. All in order. See, the 4th year, 7 years, it's done, and it's the 11th year. Guys, so it's exciting to be able to see the scriptures, to be able to understand and discern the scriptures as we're able to do now. But it's not exciting when we understand what it means. But yet it's exciting because we know what's about to come. Right? So now let's follow this process here that we're looking at. Let's keep going. Let's go into Luke 21. Watch this. We know in Luke 21, you see, this is something that's been a little bit of a thorn for me in relation to Luke 21 and 1 Thessalonians 5. And you're going to see why, because I kept saying to myself, man, if we're gone, you see, if this is the 40 days of the Son of Man, which we know it is, okay? For those that are newer, see, then said he unto them, he's speaking as if he's saying to Mark and to Matthew's group, they're going to experience the nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. That's why Mark and Matthew's discourse, when it starts, it's nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There's no black letter words. Then he said unto them, okay? This is Luke letting the bride know, letting the bride, but not even the bride, the portion of the workers from within Luke as well, that he's talking about this to Mark and to Matthew. Okay? This nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom is not for the bride. And look at what we have that follows next, okay? Nation against nation, earthquakes, frightful things. And then Luke 21:12 says, but before all these, they shall lay their hands on you, persecute you, bring you into synagogues, prisons, so on and so forth. Okay? We've broken this down many times to show that this is the 40 days of the Son of Man here. Okay? It's the 40 days of the Son of Man. Okay? We've shown you why, because Luke's story of Jonah, right? In Luke chapter 11, the Son of Man shall be as Jonah was. Jonah was 40 days as a sign. So shall the Son of Man be in this generation. Mark, he doesn't give him a sign. He says nothing's going to be given. And in Matthew, he says it'll be As Jonah was 3 days in the belly of the fish, so shall the Son of Man be. Why? This has to do with the end. I'm not going to go into it today, but it has to do with the end. In Luke, you don't get that. See, in Luke, it's about the 40 days. Now, somebody had recently posted in a comment, what was this sign? Well, the sign isn't about the escape, okay? This 40 days that we're seeing here, all this conversation that starts from verse 12, is the 40 days of the Son of Man, in which the bride will already be gone. The bride will already be gone. So as we're reading this and we see some of them being betrayed and so on and so forth, we get down to verse 20 and look at what we see. You say, well, wait a second. I thought you're saying that there was already a battle. And so then what's this one coming? This would be the second one. Okay, we said there would be the first one, then there would be a decree to allow them to rebuild. But guess what? They're not going to be able to rebuild because there'll be a second attack, this time by Syria, who's going to lay them waste without an inhabitant. And then World War III will break out. This is towards that mid-end of those 40 days. So while the 40 days of the Son of Man are going on, at some point during those 40 days, it says, and when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Okay, let them depart out. Don't let anybody come in that's in surrounding nations. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. So the first attack that's going to happen, that we saw in the 2010 video and that we've talked about for a long time, it's starting to come together here that maybe the bride will see it. We're going to keep going. And this one here, it has nothing to do with the bride. We know this is connected to the workers, those with the Lord and so forth, for 40 days. And what you see is that they haven't been destroyed yet. They're being surrounded. Well, do you think right now, and how the world is, and America's superpower, and Israel, the biggest superpower in the Middle East, that Syria is going to suddenly just start surrounding them and Israel's not going to do anything? Do you think they're going to start being compassed with armies and people are going to be able to see it, that they're going to start fleeing, but the Israeli government's not going to do anything? No, it's because this is the second one. This is the second one. This is while they're being surrounded. How can they be surrounded? Only if they've been so beaten up. Only if something has happened to America and maybe parts of the world. Okay? You'll see. We're going to get to it. So this is the second one. This is Syria surrounding that I was just showing you earlier. Okay? And then it says, and these will be the beginning of vengeance, that all things which are written might be fulfilled. Well, what is the beginning of all these things that are written that might be fulfilled? All right, that they may be fulfilled. It's the 14 years, guys. Okay, it's the tribulation of the seals, the trumpets, and so forth. This is that all things might be fulfilled. Okay, great distress on the land and this people, they shall fall by the edge of the sword until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Now, when we come down here, you see, remember this verse right here in Luke 21, verse 33. I've spoken about it I've spoken about it a few times in the past. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. This is verbatim in Mark's discourse and in Matthew's discourse as well. All three of their discourses have the exact same wording. And if you've been studying Ministry Revealed for any amount of time, you'll know that almost nothing between the three of them speaks identical, because we know they're speaking to different groups of people in relation to similar stories, but different because of how, who, and when they're speaking. But this one is always the same. And why is it the same? Because it's the division of all the events being spoken about compared to now how to take heed, how to be watchful, how to understand what's coming. Okay? And this is what we have. Verse 34 through 36. And take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with the suffering and drunkenness and cares of this life, so that day come upon you unawares. For as a snare shall it come. Okay? For as a snare shall it come, which is what? To arrive and attack. Shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch ye therefore and pray always, that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. This is the separation that tells us this grouping is together. Just like if you were to go to Mark and you go to Mark's discourse. Obviously, Mark's is very different than Luke's, and it's a little different than Matthew's. We're not going to go into all that today, except to show you that piece. Where is it? Right here. Verse 31. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. And then it starts to go into the day and hour that they won't know. Okay? Luke doesn't say you won't know the day and hour. See? Matthew says you won't know the day and hour. Mark says you won't know the day and hour. But Luke does not tell us the day that you won't know the day and hour. And you see, I'm always reminded of this by our brother Stainless C, who like a year ago said, okay, well, now I'm pretty much set. I don't know if he remains settled in it, but you know, we all get settled in something for a little while and then we realize, oh, maybe something else. But I always remember him saying, well, you know what? I can just settle it now in my heart. I'm going to wait for the attack. Right? Wait for that peace and safety that will follow. That's going to be our sign. Okay? This is what we're getting at here. So in Mark, it says, but of that day and that hour knoweth no man. Okay, not the angels which are in heaven, and so on and so forth. You go to Matthew's discourse, and Matthew's, as you guys all know as well, here it is, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. But of that day and that hour knoweth no man, so on and so forth. Okay, and this one's to the coming of the Lord. This is when he comes feet down on the Mount of Olives. In Mark, it's when he comes down on heavenly Mount Zion at the time of the rapture, at the end of seals. So why do we see of that day and hour knoweth no man, of that day knoweth no man, of that hour knoweth no man? But when you come into Luke 21, watch what it says again. Luke 21 says, and take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged and overcarried with suffering and drunkenness and cares of this life, and so that day come upon you unawares. So if you're not caught up in being overcharged in the cares and drunkenness and all the things of this life, and you're watching, then this day should not come upon you unawares, should it? This word for unawares, we've talked about it many times in the past. It's only used twice. The only other time it's used is in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. So we got drunkenness, we got the word unawares or suddenly. We have it'll come as a snare. For as a snare shall it come upon all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Something is going to catch the whole world off guard, but not those who are watching, not those who are keeping an eye, who are being watchful, who are not caught up in the cares of this world. Well, what is that thing that we're going to understand? What's this day that we're not going to be caught off guard by? Right? And then we get this greeting at the end, or this send off to say, watch ye therefore and pray always, that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass and to stand before the Son of Man. So we got drunkenness, we got unawares, we got it's going to be as a snare to all them on the earth. but there's going to be a group that escapes. Well, we all know this connection, don't we? 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. And this is why it's something that had bothered me like this little thorn for so long. And I'm still not completely convinced, but I believe I might be not much more so, but I believe I might be convinced now that this was the understanding, because I couldn't see how this was to take place if in Luke 21 we know it's the 40 days and the bride is already gone, and it's saying that they're going to be surrounded and compassed about. How are they going to be compassed about and destruction suddenly come upon them if the bride should already be gone? Guys, the answer is 2 attacks. This is the answer. The first attack is to let us know. And when that attack is done, and when things settle down, which would happen relatively quickly, somebody's going to stand up as the Cyrus and decree a commandment to allow them to go and rebuild, calling it peace and safety. The only way, the only way, Luke chapter 21, it always takes a while to load with all the highlights I go to. The only way Luke 21 and not being caught off and watching for that day and the whole world being caught off guard, the only way for this to be connected to 1 Thessalonians is if it's separate from the 40 days and this surrounding an attack that comes first. Well, that's exactly what I've been showing you. There's this first attack that will come before Netanyahu finishes his term, before those next elections come in late March. I think even well before that, to be honest. This first attack is going to throw the whole world into a freak out. But not us who are watching. The bride will know this is the time. The bride will know. Those of us, at least in this ministry, can begin to understand and say, wait a second. There's 2 attacks. There's 2 attacks. And if this is the second attack, this time frame when they're going to be surrounded, and then the attack will come after that 40 to 50 day period, which will be the beginning of the 14 years, then that must mean this here is as that decree in 2 Chronicles 36, as that commandment to go forth after the first attack in Daniel chapter 9. That's our connection to 1 Thessalonians 5 and Luke 21, 34 through 36. See, but of the times and seasons, 1 Thessalonians 5. But of the times and seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you. Have you guys ever, this is something I questioned several months back. Why does he say of the times and seasons, you don't need me to write to you? Have you ever pondered that? But of the times and seasons, brethren, which means what? The years that we're in, you know, the occasion, the festivals, the feasts, if you will, that he doesn't need to tell us about them. You have no need that I write unto you of the seasons and the times. Why? Because apparently, for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so comes as a thief in the night. That day. Remember, if we're awake and we're not sleeping, we won't be caught unawares. We showed how it was connected to Luke 21, 34 through 36. Well, who knows all things in order? For yourselves know perfectly. So who is he speaking to in 1 Thessalonians 5 here? For yourselves know perfectly. There's only one that knows perfectly. The only one that knows perfectly exactly is Luke. You see, Luke is the only one that knows things perfectly. It seemed good to me also, having had perfect understanding of all things from the very first, to write unto thee in order. So he knew all things perfectly, and he knew them all in order. And that's why we know Luke 1, 2, 3, 4 is the escape, his 40 days, the return for the rapture, and his return at the end of trumpets. Okay, his return feet down. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. And we know that he knows what? Everything exactly. Here we are talking about 1 Thessalonians 5. We're not looking at this first attack. Or sorry, we are looking at this first attack. This is where I hope this is registering with you guys, because this is where, for me personally, I've been scratching my head for a long time. Like I said a little while ago, I was scratching my head to say, but how, if they're being surrounded and that's the 40 days, how are we to look at this, which is directly connected to Luke 21, 34 through 36? He's directly speaking is it to Luke. So how is this possible? There's only one answer. The first attack happens. And after that first attack, when they declare peace and safety, when that commandment goes forth, then sudden destruction comes upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. So we just saw Luke here, okay, knowing perfectly that the day of the Lord so comes. So we would know perfectly that the day of the Lord so comes as a thief in the night. So we know it's Luke. We know that we can understand that day, whereas Matthew and Mark said, but of that day and hour, they wouldn't know. But Luke said, if you're aware and you're sober and you're watching, you'll know what it is. So comes as the thief in the night. So what is it then? Go to the next verse. For when they shall say peace and safety. Now, is this a mystery? No, the whole church has been talking about this for 100 years. All right. But the understanding of this peace and safety was the key. We've been looking at peace and safety to come out of nowhere. You understand? We've been looking at this peace deal to come about, and see all these little nations that are all coming together now for them, that have signed with Israel. That's not it. That's not it. It's the first attack that comes. It's the first attack that gets the others to surround and surrender, and Israel to surrender and say, okay, let's get a deal done. We can't continue this. Tactical nukes have been dropped on each other. We can't do this. Remember, if we watch, for those who haven't watched it, if you watch in particular these 6-7 minutes, that crux of the story, not their opinion at the end. I'm not so concerned about their translation of it. Okay, they don't understand the scriptures like we do. You see, this peace here, this peace and safety, is the peace and safety that will come after that first attack, that will be by that Cyrus type. And this is the time that we would know perfectly as Luke that the day of the Lord is at hand. So when that attack comes, and it's short-lived, and they need to settle things down and come into agreement, we have Luke, we have the word suddenly, see, there it is, and we have the word, and they shall not escape. There it is, the same one from Luke 21 verse 36. I hope this is getting, especially people that have been in ministry revealed for a little while. I know I'm harping on it here, but I really want it to sink in. Okay, we've got Luke, we've got sudden, we've got the escape, we have they're in darkness. We're children of the light, they're of the darkness. Here is the sleeping. See, they that sleep therefore let not therefore let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. So we've got the word watch, we've got sober while they're drunken, and they're drunken in the night. We've got escape, we've got all of this here in 1 Thessalonians 5, connected directly to Luke 21, verse 34 through 36. You see, and we are children of the light and children of the day. Hope unto salvation. For God hath not appointed us to wrath, but to obtain salvation. See, guys, I think this is what we were looking for. I'm positive this is what we were looking for. That the bride of Christ will see the first attack. We will see that first attack. It will bring chaos to the world to have witnessed that attack between Israel and Iran. That attack will be short-lived. There will be a decree and a peace and safety brought about from it. That decree and that peace and safety will come upon the whole world as a snare unawares. But those who were sober and watching and were aware of this coming time and season were aware that once this came about against Israel, after they had returned in the land, you see, it couldn't have happened 100 years ago. They had to be back in the land first. It had to be in the 70th year first. It has to be in the portion above 14 years. All of these pieces are musts to this being connected. And here we are. What are the chances that all the way in the New Testament you have all of this being spoken to us? And when we go all the way back into the Old Testament, far back into 2 Chronicles, and we've got this whole story here in 2 Chronicles about when they would be attacked, why they're being attacked this first time, and that it's relating to the 70 years that they're in the land. And then there's a decree because of this first attack that had happened. You see? And that's why in Luke, for my final point on this in Luke for the start, and that's why trying to discern and understand this but before all these, this but before all these has nothing to do with the bride being here. It's the but before all these, the nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. This is all 40-day stuff. And during the 40s, Syria will surround. And then they would attack when the 40 days are done, when the Son of Man is gone. The apostles, the disciples have been chosen. Then, shortly after that, Syria will attack Israel and those connected with Syria. But Assad will be the leader. He is the lion. This is the coming second attack. And that's why we see this attack coming later in our understanding compared to this one being connected to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and scratching our heads and saying, but if they've been attacked and they're declaring a peace and safety, but if they're declaring a peace and safety and then an attack comes, but when you see, it was confusing, but we've got it now, guys. The revelation was the two attacks. You follow that? And like I said, as we keep going here and you see these attacks that are coming next, as we follow all these things through, it's insane. You know, when we look at here, let me show you on the big picture of this here. This is the 14 years, if you will. Okay, for those that are new, it's the 14-year tribulation timeline. These are the 7 seals. Whoops. There's your 7 seals. There's your 7 trumpets. The bride of Christ is going to escape all these things that shall come to pass. The Son of Man is going to be here for 40 days. Yeah, I've got it in December. I'll adjust it and I'll make the changes. It's not far off though. All right. The bride escapes. The Son of Man is here for 40 days. So now we've got this connection. Now we know what this sign is. Now we know what we're looking for. An attack on Israel. And then this coming decree. Bam. Then the Son of Man will come for 40 days shortly later. Okay. Then you've got the lion, who is Syria, that after the 40 days of the Son of Man are done, he's been surrounding them during these 40 days. And then he attacks at a very short period of time after the Son of Man is gone. Syria attacks, the bear shows up, and it's World War III that breaks out. World War III, guys. This is what comes after that crazy beginning. The crazy beginning starts in Israel, starts in the Middle East. So do you see, when we were looking here in Luke 21, verse 35, for as a snare shall it come upon all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. How is an attack on Israel going to be a snare that comes upon the whole earth? It's not. That's not the snare that comes upon the whole earth. It's the escape. It's the escape at the decree after the attack. And those who are awake and watching will have understood that day and won't be caught unaware, whereas the whole rest of the world will be caught in the snare of it. And those of the bride of Christ, the Gentile bride of Christ, will be standing before him just as a bride stands before her bridegroom. This is why when you have the end of Luke 21, verse 37 and 38, he goes up to the Temple Mount and he abode, and early in the morning all the people come to him. It's why in John, the 21 chapters, 7 easy years, 7 years of seals, 7 years of trumpets. It's why after the 7 easy years come to an end, the beginning of chapter 8, right at the start of the 14 years, early in the morning, Jesus went in the Mount of Olives, and early in the morning, they came down to sit and to hear him. And then what happens? A Gentile woman, the adulterous woman, is brought before him, and he's bent down on one knee, standing before him. And then all of a sudden he stands up and it's just her standing before him. It's the exact same piece of scripture. It's the continuation of Luke 21. You follow that? This snare is that peace and safety that all them caught up in the cares and the political realm and everything else that are going to be caught in that snare. It's not the attack on Israel. It's what follows that attack on Israel. And to think this is just the beginning. This is just the setup. So after this, then you've got the 40 days. Then you've got Jerusalem compassed about, and the lion has now come up from his thicket. Then you've got the destroyer of the Gentiles. That's what comes next. The destroyer of the Gentiles. So once Syria scatters them throughout the earth, scatters them out of the land, and they're gone for 7 years, well, then you've got what? Then you've got the red horse rider. Then you've got the bear that's come up. Peace is now taken from the earth that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. See, this great sword, this is the slayer. This is the one that's going throughout the whole earth. This is World War III. This will begin at some point, late spring, early summer, at some point, early-ish mid next year, World War III will break out. And it just so happens it's in the plans of the elite if you watch this portion of the video, which is 10 years old. It's all laid out. That's why this video was given to me when it was given to me. So we have Israel attacked, then another attack on Israel, then World War III, and it's just begun. How long does World War III last? World War III will last until the time that the Antichrist receives his power to continue 42 months. So you're looking at 2.5, maybe 3 years or so of World War III. Absolutely devastating is what's coming. That's why we see. Then it says the black horse rider. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard and the beast say, come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances. And I heard the voice, the fourth beast, say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and hurt not the oil and the wine. What's coming, guys? Famine. Yes, it's famine of the word, but it's also, see, we got famine of the word, see, famine of food, but also of the word. Christians aren't going to be liked very much. Remember, revival is going to take place right at the beginning. What do you think all of the sleeping church is going to do? What do you think is going to happen when tens of millions of people vanish? It's going to be the greatest revival in human history. It's going to be amongst great chaos. And we tend to think of these things America and Israel related. Nope. Get that out of your heads, brothers and sisters. The whole earth is going to be caught unawares. The whole earth is going to be involved. World War I, World War II, yeah, they were kind of world, but a lot of the world wasn't involved in it. This one, the whole world will be involved. The whole world will be involved in the coming revival. Here you've heard all these pastors, a lot of people talking about a great revival that's coming. I've been telling you guys about it for 2 years as well. This first part, this first church, right? This first church in relation to the end of days is the apostolic age. It's going to be the Acts 2.0 revival beginning. This is how it starts. What causes the greatest amount of revival? Well, war always causes a revival. How about a world war? Well, that'll cause a great revival. How about a world war and tens of millions of people having vanished? Well, that will be the greatest revival in all of human history. It'll probably be 1 billion plus people coming. I'm certain it'll be 1 billion plus people. You see? And that's going to take place during those first 2.5, 3 years or so, while the lion had attacked, and then Russia and World War III, and then the leopard is part of it. And the leopard is involved. Remember I said the leopard as the body, it was going to kind of be the control system? Watch this. Watch what I found today. I think it's 1 Kings 20. Let me see. I think maybe 21. It's really pretty wild. I hadn't seen this before. I must have seen it because I had it highlighted, but I didn't remember it. Oh, please. Shoot. It was pretty wild. Anyways, it talked about how the Lord was going to bring about the Lord would bring about the lion. In this case, he would bring about the bear as doing this. He would bring about the leopard as control, I think it said. It's pretty awesome. I'll have to look it up if I remember, and I'll put it in the next video. And it's because, like I've told you guys, this is Syria, this is Russia, and the leopard is Germany. They're going to be the control center for everything. So that when the Antichrist gets his power to continue for 42 months, he's going to have the control center of Germany, he's going to have the army of Russia, and he's going to have Syria as the mouth. All right, the Middle East, the control with the Middle East as well. And then what happens? Well, now this point here, they've just went through Israel war, then a second attack, then World War III breaking out, millions upon millions and millions and millions dying. I think the fourth, the black horse, like a quarter of the population. It would appear the quarter of the population of the earth dies in World War III. You see, and when the Antichrist comes, yes, war settles, but there's still wars breaking out. There's still wars going around. But the Antichrist will have the overall control. And when this Antichrist period comes, look at what it says. Go to Revelation 13. Remember, we're looking at this at wars, right? So here's the Antichrist shows up. We see he here it is. The beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, his feet were like unto a bear, and his mouth was like a lion, and the dragon gave him his great power. I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshiped the dragon and gave power unto the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Here it is. Who is able to make war with him? You see, he put an end to what? I believe what's happened is he's put an end to the world war. Oh, there's still going to be conflicts and wars in other countries here and there. But the great world war of World War III will have settled. Okay? But now when it's settled, where does this put it? Well, now you've got the second beast that's going to cause to have an image built and the mark of the beast and all these things. Well, we know that this is a period of what? We know that this is Mark's period that we were just talking about. So the world just got of this attack, millions vanishing, then World War III, and then World War III coming to an end and being settled by this system and by this person that will head it. And everybody's going to say, man, who can make war against this guy? And then they're going to make this image and this receiving of a mark on the hand or on the forehead. That is this first abomination being spoken of by Daniel in Mark chapter 13. What happens at this point? Another fleeing. Oh my goodness, after all the craziness of war and the famines and everything that take off during the famines and all the death that takes place, now you're only at about mid-seals. And the Antichrist will take his power to continue 42 months. And that's when great idolatry will kick in from him. All right, the idol worship, the mark of the beast. That's why it says standing where it ought not. This is the mark of the beast. To stand, or is it to place where it ought not? Okay, it means to look, here it is right here. And to place, it could be something placed in the hand or in the forehead. This is the mark of the beast. This is only mid-seals. What's going to happen here? What happens at mid-seals at this point? Christians got to flee. Christians have to now go flee into the wilderness. So all those Christians that were being saved during the great revival, if they've been obedient and seeking the Lord, well, now what happens? That apostolic age is really kind of trickled off. The people are still there. Excuse me, many will be dead. Okay, many will be persecuted, will begin. Here's that persecution that starts with Smyrna. Okay, this persecution is going to start during and later portion of this apostolic age that'll begin at the start of seals. But then persecution is still really going to kick in during the time of World War III as well. That's taking place during all this. And so they're wondering, people are hiding out. There's no food. There's famine all over the world. And then what happens? Mid-portion of seals. Mid-portion of seals, they call it the church age of Constantine. Constantine here is the type and shadow of Antichrist. So now you get to mid portion of seals. Antichrist gets his power to continue 42 months. And what does that mean? Time for the Christians to flee. It's time to flee into the wilderness. I don't know why they have them in the wrong spot, but it's time for them to flee into the wilderness. This is exactly what Pergamum was told. Go read one of the things for Pergamum, that they would be given manna. To the obedient. Why? If you remain obedient and faithful in the Lord and repentant during this time and trusting in the Lord, after having been revived in the apostolic revival, enduring the persecution and all this stuff during World War III, that's still going on until the Antichrist comes. Now you're fleeing into the wilderness. This is the Mark 13 abomination of desolation. Now when they're going to flee into the wilderness. Do you understand why these things speak the way they speak? For in those days shall be affliction, such as was not from the beginning of creation, which God created unto this time. This is when they flee. This is a portion of time worse, going crazier than World War III. It's going to be the daily sacrificing of Christians for the purpose of the Antichrist. All the world that's going to follow the Antichrist compared to all those Christians that were saved. It calls it worse than all of history. And we see, and except that the Lord had shortened those days, there should be no flesh saved, but for the elect's sake, whom he hath chosen, he hath shortened the days. What do you think this relates to? War. Oh my goodness, war again. Yes, war again. What are we talking about? When the Lord comes down on Zion. You see, the time is going to be cut short. It's not the way the church has always thought they were teaching us. You see, guys, it's impossible. It's impossible when we're watching these people that are teaching 7 years. It's impossible. It must be understood in 7. That's why when we listen to teachings of 7 years, you must discern from your 14-year open Gospels, open book Revelation understanding. And take out those pieces from it. And take out those pieces and see where they go. Because they cannot give it to you in a 7-year teaching. It's impossible. Literally. This shortening that we're seeing here, watch this. We go to Revelation chapter 6. Remember, the 6 years of seals, the 1 through 6 seals are the first 6 years of the seals tribulation. It does not mean that it's 1 year and then the next year is the next one and then the next year is the next one. That's not what it means. Okay? They will come together. They will mingle. Some will start, some will end. One will continue through the next one while they're going together. Okay? They're going to be mixed together. But look at what we see here. See, the time is being cut short. Look at what happens. Here's the 6th seal. A great earthquake, sun became black, sun, stars fell as a fig tree cast to the earth. But look at what happens. Verse 15. Revelation 6, verse 15 and 16. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and and every bondman, and every freeman, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and to the rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sits on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath is come. What happened? The great day of his wrath is come. When? Before the end of the 6 years of seals. You see, the 7th year is a Sabbath year. What happens in the Sabbath year, the 7th year of seals? The 144,000 are sealed. Then you've got the rapture of the great multitude. This happens in about the first 6 months of the seventh year Sabbath. And then the second half is the seventh seal, which is about half an hour, which is about the other 6 months, and it'll be silence in heaven. Okay, and silence on earth. All that craziness will have ended. So this being cut short is what? Hide us from, all right? Hide us from his face and so forth, right? For his wrath is come. But guess what? When this happens, what about all these people that were fighting? What about these wars that were still continuing? Yes, the Antichrist stops the overall world war, but all these wars and these things that they still had amongst each other. Remember what Zechariah tells us? So you got the 7 years of seals, right? And then you got the 7 years of trumpets, right? That's the type and shadow of the 14 years of Zechariah. And in Zechariah 8, which is the beginning of trumpets, see, the Lord has now returned. He's on heavenly Mount Zion. Okay, this is after the 7th year that he's come. Things were being established. And look at what it says. We know the foundation was laid during the 4th year, and it's chapter 4 of Zechariah. Remember I showed you earlier, it was the 4th year in 1 Kings chapter 6, and it was in chapter 4 of Zechariah we showed in the previous video. Well, here we are now at the beginning of trumpets, 1st year of trumpets. The foundation was laid, and now they're going to start rebuilding the city and the streets and the temple on that foundation. And he tells them, for before these days there was no man for hire, nor hire for beast, neither was there any peace to him that went out or came in, because of the affliction, for I set all men, every one against his neighbor. You see, for the 7 years of seals tribulation, there was no peace. You see, he said the affliction of everyone. Well, where was the affliction? Whoops, in Zechariah chapter 1. The affliction began, see, these 70 years. He was sore displeased with the heathen that were at ease, and they helped forward the affliction. Bang, tribulation's going to begin. So for 7 years, there was affliction going on. He said every man against his neighbor. That's nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, people against people. So even though World War III will have settled overall in that sense during the midish portion when the Antichrist comes and gets his power to continue, there will still be wars in parts of the world going on. Okay, that's what chapter 8 is telling us. He had said affliction. They were still all set against each other. But what happens here? This is at the end of 6 years. So this is the time frame of the end of 6 years. But it's before the 7th of rest. It's before the 8th, when he's now on Mount Zion and the city and the streets are going to start being rebuilt. So it's not when the 144,000 are being sealed and there's the rapture. It's not the 6 months or that about half an hour when there's silence in heaven. So we're looking at a time towards the end of the 6th year. Well, what do we know happens at that time? What are they going to do when they see him coming? The answer to that is found in 2nd Esdras. Okay, watch this. We've talked about it many times. Behold, the days are coming when the Most High will deliver those who are on the earth. This is the escape of the Gentile bride. This is the pre-trib escape, okay? Bewilderment of mind shall come over those who dwell on the earth, and they shall plan to make war against one another, nation against nation, city against city, place against place, kingdom against kingdom. Okay, red horse rider time. When the whole world will be caught in that snare off guarded, all right, or unawares. Those who were not unawares when that decree was made, they will be delivered by the Most High. Then there's the freaking out when they're caught off guard. And then World War III will break out. See, then it talks about the signs that I was talking about earlier in the story that he says. And then he says, and then my son will be revealed. And listen to what it says. And when all the nations, so when is this? This is the time frame of the late time of the 6th year of seals. It says, then my son will be revealed, and when all the nations hear his voice, every man shall leave his own land and the warfare they had against one another. Okay? And an innumerable multitude shall be gathered together, as you saw, desiring to come and conquer him. But he shall stand on top of Mount Zion. You see, because he's coming on the mountain carved without hand. And Zion will come to be made manifest to all people, prepared and built, as you saw a mountain carved without hands. Remember, this prepared and built is only found in Mark, because Mark is the sleeping church. Mark is the sleeping church that will wake up during the tribulation of seals, during all the wars and the chaos and the mark and the antichrist and the beheadings and all of that craziness. And when he comes on Mount Zion, that's the place prepared and built. That's why only Mark says the place prepared. This is why John chapter 14, the 7th year, right? 7 easy, then 7 years of seals, the 14th chapter. He says, I go and prepare a place for you, that when I return, I will receive you unto myself, and there shall you always be with me. That is this right here. It is the rapture group right here. And listen to what it says. It's the mountain carved without hands. And he, my son, will reprove the assembled nations for their ungodliness. This was symbolized with the storm. And what does he do? He destroys all those, right, with his voice, with the sword, as a flame. Okay? This is the war that he has against those who come against him. When they don't know what this is, they're going to be freaking out. They're going to leave the wars, the battles that they have against themselves, and they're going to turn and come together. They're going to return to their own lands, and then they're going to assemble together all the nations to come against them, because this mountain is going to be revealed. What is it going to look like? I have no idea, but it's going to be pretty wild, wouldn't you say? And once he's done dealing with that war, it says, and as for you, seeing him gather to himself another multitude that was peaceable, these are the 10 tribes. See, this is Israel. This is the sleeping church that were led away captive during the time of King Hosea by who? The Assyrian. Are you following? So this is another war. This is yet another war. Where is this war? It's right in this period right here, towards the latter portion of the 6th seal. You see, he's not doing it during the 7th year of rest, which means what? The time was cut short. The time was cut short. It might even be 6 months prior to the end of the 6th seal that he shows up. Remember, that plays out over a 6-year period, the 6 seals. We don't know when all of that starts and finishes and everything else, but we know his cutting short is at about that time. Following? So that's another war. And which war is that? Well, I've talked about this one. This one was really fun. I mentioned it not too long ago. It's one of those things that just makes you say, what the heck is going on here? Okay? Watch this. Okay? Scripture must be fulfilled in Jesus. So starting in Luke 22, verse 35. And he said unto them, when I sent you without purse and script and shoes, lacked you anything? And they said nothing. Then said he unto them, but now he that hath purse, let him take it, and likewise his script, and he that has no sword. So he's speaking to his disciples and the whole group of people with him. Okay, now guys, go get your purse, go get your script, go get everything. And whoever doesn't have a sword, let him sell his garment and buy one. This is where it gets hilarious. All right. For I say unto you that this that is written must yet be accomplished in me. Must yet be accomplished in me. It didn't happen during his time, guys. And he was reckoned among, this is what he's saying, it must yet be accomplished in me. And he was reckoned among the transgressors. For the things concerning me have an end. Okay, remember, he told them everybody's got to go get a sword. Sell your clothes if you have to get a sword. And then after he tells us about himself, listen to what it says. And they said to him, so while he's speaking to them, they're like turning sideways, looking at each other, and hey, you got a sword? Yo, Luke, or hey, Paul, or hey, John, you got a sword? Hey, disciple over there, you got a sword? And all of a sudden they turn to him and they say, and they said, Lord, behold, here are 2 swords. He just told them all to go get a sword. No matter what, you all need a sword. And while he's telling them this, they turn back to him and say, hey, Lord, we got 2. Lord, is it okay if we have 2? What do you think about this? And then he says, yeah, that's enough. I love it. It's one of the funniest stories in scripture, but when you understand it, it's mind-blowing. And you know what? It cannot be understood in a 7-year understanding. These 2 swords, even though he told them all to go get one no matter what, they turn and say, we got 2. And he's like, okay, that's good. These 2 swords being spoken about are what I just showed you in 2nd Esdras, which is the end of seals. Okay? When he comes on, when he's being seen coming on heavenly Mount Zion, and they want to come and they're going to come and fight against them, going back to their land, and everybody's freaking out. This is that first sword. There's a reason why it was only 2 swords and he said it was okay. This was that first one. So what do we see so far? We see in a short period of time, we see Israel attacked, then a decree, then Israel attacked, surrounded and attacked again, World War III breaking out amidst a time of great revival, but absolute devastation of World War III and persecution of the Christians. Then Antichrist getting his power, World War III being settled down, but wars are still breaking out, are still going on around the world. And now it begins the persecution of all of those Christians that were being saved. They're fleeing into the wilderness. Then the Lord comes, cuts that time short, and it's another battle where they all leave the fighting that they had, return to their nations, then come to battle and fight against the Lord. And the Lord uses his first sword here. All of this I just yelled out to you guys is the next 6 years, beginning in sometime in the spring of 2021. Did you hear all of that? That's just some of the main events. Those are just some of the main events. Never mind what comes at the 6th seal to start the 6th seal. Man, how many people are going to be left after all that? And then the rapture. And the rapture is what? The dead in Christ, right? Those that were under the altar. And then you have what? Those who were alive with palms in their hands. We had a revelation. We spoke about that in a video a long time ago. Okay, you have those that are in white robes that were under the altar, and you have those that are the alive ones in Revelation 7 that are the ones with palms in their hands. Will they maybe both have white robes and palms in their hands? Yes. But there's a distinction being given between the two, because one has to do with the ones that were already dead, and the other one has to do with the ones that were the alive ones. Okay? Those that are the alive, the palms in their hands, they're the ones in Mark chapter 9. Okay, when you see in some of them that will not have tasted of death till they will have seen the Son of Man coming in power and glory. You see, they will have seen him, but they didn't know when their time was. They will have seen him coming. The 144,000 are being sealed, and then they're going to help bring in the rapture group. But do you see what happened? They will have seen him coming, but they didn't know when his time was. Why? Because for them, of that day and hour, nobody knows. Ta-da! Well, guess what? It's still not done. Remember, Jesus was given 2 swords. Then you've got the Son of Man. Okay, the Lord, the Lamb is on Mount Zion. They start rebuilding the city and the streets for the next 3.5 years of trumpets. You know, we don't talk very often about the trumpet devastations, though, do we? So while Israel is being surrounded with a flame, while Israel has the 2 witnesses around it, while Israel has all this protection and is being rebuilt in the temple and everything else, the whole world isn't necessarily at ease, is it? You've got the trumpets being blown, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right? When 1/3 of the grass and 1/3 of the waters and all that stuff happens. See, does the church have to worry about it at this point? No, this seals are done. The escape had happened. The rapture of the church has happened. Now it's Jacob's trouble time. But you got to remember, everybody else is still on the earth, right? Those who still didn't believe, however many, maybe 2-3 billion might be left, or 4 billion left at that time, I would say at most. They're still living in the world too, right? Well, all these calamities come upon them. The times will have changed here. This time of salvation by just belief in Christ is over. It's going to change back. It's going back to the ways it was. It's going back to the time of Judah, back to the time of the Jews. You see, it doesn't mean that all the Gentiles coming in are going to have to get circumcised and everything else. Paul tells us about that. But they are going to have to become more obedient to other ways of doing things. See, there won't be too many left coming at that time. At this point, I'd say like 98, 99% of all Christians and of all Gentiles to that time will have come in. All right? The bride is the 10%. The rapture of the church is probably 88, 89%. And then you got the corners and gleaning that will come in even into the later end. So now what's the next war? Well, you've got all of this stuff taking place during the first 3.5 years of trumpets. And what happens during these first 3.5 years of trumpets? Wars. Could you imagine? It never dawned on me how many wars there were. But when you go see all these nations that he's going to defeat that came against Israel. Or how about once you get to mid-trumpets when Satan is cast down? What was going on during the first 3.5 years of trumpets while the city and the streets and everything was being rebuilt? And you had Elijah there, and there was what? Well, he stopped the water and everything for 3.5 years, right? Stopped the rain. This is the 3.5 years while they're preaching, right? While they're protecting and they're speaking over the nations. And he's causing droughts and all these things to come over lands. But when Satan is cast down, then what happens? Then there's a cutting off. Oh, sorry. During the first 3.5 years of trumpets, what I wanted to say is there's a battle going on in heaven. There's a war in the second heaven. In the second heaven, Revelation 12. You see, in the second heaven, here it is right here, Revelation 12, verse 7. This is during the 1260 days while the city and the streets are being rebuilt, and the temple. It said, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. When we read this, we generally read this and say, it's almost like, he beats them. They beat him. It's over. No, it's going to be a 3.5 year battle in the heavens. Is the world going to be able to see it? I don't know. I mean, if the world is going to be able to see heavenly Mount Zion, are they going to be able to see this war taking place up above in the sky? I don't know. You know, a lot of people will say, and when we believe too, that aliens are the fallen angels, right? Aliens are all the enemies, of course. So is it possible that that's the kind of battle that's going to be seen? I don't know. I don't know. But it's going to last 3.5 years. Okay, that's an upper, greater spiritual battle, and a real battle that's going to take place too. And when it's done, and Satan and his guys lose, they're going to be cast down to the earth. Heaven's all rejoicing, but woe to the inhabitants of the earth, right? That's the fifth trumpet, the first woe. He's going to have great wrath because now he's on the earth. And what's he going to do? Well, we know they're going to fly on the wings of an eagle. They're going to leave for the last 3.5 years of trumpets. God's going to fly away at the time of being cut off. Jesus is going to leave. Right? To the end of trumpets, they're going to be protected in a place. But what does he do? He now goes after who? The remnant of her seed. Those 144,000 that are working the second half of trumpets as well. And what does he do? He goes to make war against them, against the remnant, the two witnesses. So we got another war. How long does this war last? This war is going to last 2.5 years. You can go into Revelation 11. So he's cast out. It's the time of the fifth trumpet, the first woe. The pit is opened. Craziness war is going to break out. And you see here, we have the, where is it? Okay, he's going to make war. So when the pit is open, what's going to happen? They're going to make war against the remnant of her seed. They're going to make war against the two witnesses, and they will overcome them and kill them. Okay, but it's not right away. It's going to be a 2.5 year war. It's going to go to the end of the sixth trumpet. You see, when he finally kills them towards the very end of the sixth trumpet, and in the same hour, the two witnesses resurrect. Right? The two witnesses resurrect, and the 7,000 that were slain of the remnant were frightened. And the second woe is over. This is the end of the sixth year of trumpets. So it lasted 2.5 years. Watch. If you go into Matthew, and you go into Matthew's discourse, look what we see. We go to Matthew's discourse. You have the abomination of desolation. This is the second one. This is standing in the holy place. Well, the holy place won't be built till the first half of trumpets comes to an end. So see who's going to step in the holy place. Over here was Antichrist with the mark. Over here is Satan being cast down when the temple is built, and it's going to be standing in the holy place. So this abomination of desolation in Matthew is the second half of trumpets. You see, and now what are they going to do? Now it's fleeing. This is when they're going to get to go flee on the wings of an eagle. Great tribulation says was not since the beginning of time. It's going to be even worse than it was for Mark's portion. And we also have, but except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Exactly how long is Satan's time going to last? Out of the final 3.5 years, 2.5 years is going to be Satan's time before the Lord returns at the end of the sixth trumpet. Remember, we've proven this in Revelation 12:14. They go for time and half a time. But over in Daniel chapter 12, they say, well, how long? They're crying out. He cries out, how long is this going to last? And it says a time times and a half. There's no and here. That means it's not an addition. It's 1 year, 2 years and a half, until he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people. All these things shall be finished. Well, at the Revelation chapter 10, when all these things shall be finished, It's at the end of the sixth trumpet when the seventh is about to blast. It's going to be cut short because it's only going to last 2.5 years. And then you follow this and you end up finding out that if that's when they start rebuilding the city and the streets, and they're rebuilding for 3.5 years, and then Satan comes, he's been cast down, the vintage coming down. He's cutting off, he's breaking his covenant that he made at the beginning of trumpets. Jesus is. You see where he's being sold or sold out again for the 30 pieces of silver, like we talked about in the last video. You see, what do we find out? Well, there's 3.5 years in. So if you take a half year from 11, 12, 13, there's 2.5 years. So when the 2.5 years are over, at the beginning of the 14th or at the end of 13 years, what do we see? The Lord returned, feet down on the Mount of Olives. What is this period then? There's the 3.5 years from chapter 8 through to chapter 11. The midpoint of chapter 11, boom. 3.5 years later, Satan is cast down. His time is going to last 2.5 years, while the other group was taken into the wilderness, protected for the whole 3.5 remaining years. Satan has 2.5 years where he's going after them, and he's finally going to destroy them after the 2.5 years. There's craziness in this time. Things we couldn't even imagine will take place with Satan and all of the fallen angels and the pit opened and so forth. And then what happens? When the Lord returns, feet down on the Mount of Olives. Well, what period of time is that? After the 13 years, start of the 14, when he comes feet down on the Mount of Olives. Let's have a read to Zechariah chapter 14. Let's start in verse 2. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. So you got a gathering again of all these nations coming. And the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled with women ravished, and half the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Here it goes. Verse 3. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations. Okay, this was Satan and those guys. And fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle. What? As when he fought in the day of battle. What day of battle? Remember the end of Seals? Remember the end of Seals? Remember what 2nd Ezra was saying? When he comes as coming down on Mount Zion, made manifest, and all the multitude will gather together to come and to fight and to conquer him. At the end of Seals, before then, Mount Zion is established at the beginning of trumpets. They're rebuilding the city in the streets, just like it's telling us over in Daniel. Then there's 2.5 years of Satan. And then when the Lord returns, what's happening? When the Lord returns, feet down on the Mount of Olives at the end of 13 years, what is he going to do? He's going to fight again as when he fought in the day of battle. Do you remember what that day of battle was? Luke chapter 22. That funny verse that I enjoy. The 2 swords. Remember I said the 1 sword was used up at the end of Seals? The 2nd sword is Zechariah, the beginning of chapter 14, when he will now fight as when he did in the day of battle, which was at the end of Seals. What was that battle at the end of Seals? It was, you guys know it, the Ezekiel 39 war. You get it? Ezekiel 39. See that? Ezekiel 39. 6th year, 6th seal. As when he fought in the day of battle. Guys, There is so much being revealed. There is so much we've been given here in this ministry. Can you understand why we need to pray like crazy for family and friends? When I say you guys are in my prayers every night, it's because you're in my prayers every night. I obviously don't know each and every one of you, but I pray over each and every one of your families, over all those friends that you're praying for. I cover you all as I cover my family, that each and every one that is being prayed for within my family, within my family, within my home, and within my family of my mother and my sister as well, and all those within this ministry, known and unknown, but God knows, being prayed for, all that are being prayed for, whether we're praying for people that are friends in the sleeping church, whether they're those that are still blinded. I pray that the power of the Holy Spirit comes upon them, will wake them up, will remove those scales from their eyes, will unplug their ears and circumcise their hearts, that they would repent and be ready, that they would be baptized in Jesus Christ's name for the remission of sins and the receiving of the Holy Ghost, that they would be accounted worthy at the start. But at the very worst case scenario, I pray that the Lord will not miss a single one, that not a single one that's ever been prayed for by anybody in this ministry would be left. Not one would be missed, is the prayer. If they must endure, then let them endure in Him. There's a reason why it says, a time as if has never been in all of human history. It had never really dawned on me just how many wars, just how much devastation was coming. So don't listen to anybody telling you that the tribulation has already begun. They have no understanding as to the timing. Not that they don't have an understanding in anything. They do not have the understanding of the timing. The tribulation, I promise you 100%, has not begun. It will begin with war, and it will end with war. I love you guys. God bless you. God bless your families. And I will be back next time, God willing, with much more exciting videos. I love you. God bless you. Bye for now.